Welcome to Fantasy Football Hub. I'm joined today by FPL Salah, aka Abdul, and we're going to talk about the double game week. And there's lots to talk about this week. We've loads to cover. We've four big teams: City, United, Spurs, and four big teams and Palace. Sorry to any Palace fans that we're all going to be targeting this week, and we're going to talk through them one at a time. But first, how was last week for you? Do you want to talk us through your point haul?
Yeah, it wasn't too good, John. I was obviously I had I had one free transfer, and um I was very close to doing James to Shaw, but I decided to save that transfer, so I had two free transfers going to Gameweek 20 because I knew that there was going to be a lot of FA Cup games and a lot of doubles will be confirmed this week, which they were, which we know about now. But obviously missed out on Shaw's 15 pointer, and I've got a pretty poor 45 points this week. So it's a fall down from like 130k to 210k. So yeah, not the best start. And I've only got Kepa and Andreas to go because obviously Mitrovic went and got himself
Yeah.
suspended.
Mitrovic was heartbreaking. A lot of us made
Yeah,
that call, and I think it was one of those calls that within the Twitter sphere and YouTube scene, everyone it felt like everyone was doing it. But I think in the wider
yeah.
game, it was a huge upside on going Mitrovic. We're very lucky with Haaland, but it's a real shame he's missing that second game. And it was also that yellow card was also a swing in the bonus points.
Yeah, huge swing. I mean, I think he was on three bonus points. So you're talking like 9 points and an extra fixture, and then we ended up with 5 points and no second fixture. So it was pretty gutting. And especially due to the fact he was like 84% owned and you had him as a captain.
Yeah.
And it's a big opportunity because every other week with Captain Haaland, who's like over 100% owned every week. So yeah, it could have been huge, but it ended up being really disappointing in the end.
Unfortunately. Now, I'm actually a bit gutted that everyone had Shaw because I've been singing his praises and I picked him since game week 17.
Mm.
So but that said, I've got three nice holes off him. So I got 60 points. I suppose he kind of pushed me up there. Disappointed in Mitrovic again. De Bruyne again letting everything down. Rashford did great as always. White and Trippier, but 60 points for me going ahead. I've got two free transfers and 4.5 million in the bank. We'll talk about
Yeah,
transfers a little bit later. But first, we have four teams to talk about in depth, as I mentioned. First up, Man City, and I'm going to come out with a bang. We're going to start this with an absolute bang.
mm.
Man City have a double, albeit not the sexiest fixtures. Haaland, triple captain. Yay or nay?
It's a tough one. I'm considering it this week, John. I mean, I think the dilemma is like they've got two tough fixtures, like in United and
United and
Spurs.
Spurs.
So it's uh, it's a tough fixtures. But what we've got in the favour here is that we know like there's no games on, in between those two games, and there's a big it's this, the first game's on Saturday and then the early kickoff, and then the Spurs game's on Thursday, right? So there's plenty of time for recovery. So you're pretty much guaranteed 180 minutes from Haaland or close to that, right? Later on in the season, City will get better double game weeks, but that's going to be at the time where there's going to be it's going to be further on in the FA Cup. There's going to be Champions League games, so his minutes are going to be a bit unsecure during those times. We don't know whether he even
Mm.
plays two games. Whether he gets like he'll get reduced minutes in those two games. So it's one of those cases, isn't it? It's like a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. It's like that kind of scenario we've got this game week. So we have the minutes there, but we haven't got the fixtures. So it's a tough one for me because Haaland can score against anybody. I
Mm.
mean, since he's came in the Premier League, he's literally been the favourite to score every single game week. Regardless of the fixture. So it's a tough one.
Yeah, the risk you run is that at the next time there's a double, he gets COVID, he gets sick, he hurts
Exactly.
his
Yeah.
arm, you know, he can't play. And now it's one of those where I'm looking at it and while the fixtures are horrible in the face of it, I think like the derby, anything can happen, and I wouldn't necessarily personally take United's great defensive record recently into account too much there, which is maybe naive of
Yeah.
me.
Agree.
But I kind of look at that and I look at it, it's like your defensive record against the rest of the league doesn't matter when you're playing City, in my
Yeah.
head. And Haaland as well comes in there. Haaland can get a goal, no problem there. And then even Spurs, it's like, they conceded against Villa recently. They can concede eight to Man City. I'm not saying that's going to happen,
Yeah,
but you
I
know what
mean,
I
I mean
mean?
that's it, John. I mean, the thing is that this City, they're just kind of by far and ahead the best attacking team in the league, even like man for man. So yeah, you're totally right. I mean, when you're looking at City, you don't really they haven't really got a hard, tough fixture which they can't score in. I mean, obviously, the fixtures they have are tougher, comparatively to the rest of the league, but they can still easily score two or three goals in those games, each game. So, yeah, it's why it's a tough one this week, I think.
He's been hitting blanks recently, but a lot of us are still going to be going for KDB. A lot of talks of Salah's two
Mm.
KDBs and whatever else. What do you think of Kevin De Bruyne? And then outside that, if you had to pick a different mid that was maybe a bit more budget friendly, obviously there's trouble with Foden. Mahrez is
Yeah.
coming into a good bit of form.
Mhm.
Who are you going for in the midfield of City? Who are you considering?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I think KDB is definitely the most nailed midfielder, and the one that's most likely to play two games. But looking at outside KDB, he does obviously cost a lot. I think for me right now, Mahrez is the clear favourite, outside KDB. The thing with Mahrez is, well, the thing with Pep is that he seems to give players a run who are playing well, and he's been talking. I mean, it's a weird one with Pep because lately he's been talking about the players' body language, and he's talking about how they're doing in training. He says that he's going to be picking players on how their body language is in training and how they've been performing, etc., etc. So at the moment, it seems like Mahrez is in his good books. We know that can change in an instant, but at the moment, I think if I was to kind of if I was a betting man, I would say I think Mahrez does start the two games in the double. But saying that, like if he has if he drops an absolute stinker in game one, easily get dropped in, for game two, against Spurs. So yeah, I mean, if I was looking outside KDB, I would go Mahrez. There's a lot upside there. We know how explosive he is, John. Like when he starts, and his stats when he starts, I think he's in the last four games he's got attacking returns in every single fixture. He scored two goals in the FA Cup as well against Chelsea. So yeah, he is like the man in form just now. I don't see Pep dropping him. Judging by what he's been saying about him.
And then if you had to pick a defender for Man City, who are you picking? Obviously
I,
Cancelo's not doing great.
Yeah, I mean, who could have predicted Cancelo? He was like the
Well, there
most
was a
nailed.
guy called John Nellis who picked Shaw over Cancelo in Game Week 17, actually, but
Genius, that
I need
boy.
to win something. I'm 600 and something
Yeah,
K. I need to take my wins.
yeah. To be fair, that was a great call,
It was luck
because it
because
was
I
quite
didn't have a
brave.
clue. I didn't have a clue.
I mean, it was a brave call going without Cancelo, I think. I mean, it was. I mean, I don't think anybody could have predicted him being like totally dropped like that for Rico Lewis of all people. I mean, no offense, obviously he's a great player, but he's young. He's only in FPL. He's only 3.9 million.
Mm.
But that's what's happened, and for 7.1 million, I don't think we can hold on to him for too much longer. So I think for right now, I think John Stones for me is the clear favourite. Defenders for City. He's only 5.4 million. He's probably going to start the two games. I think him and Ake will probably start the two games in the double. But with Stones, I think he's got a bit more of the attacking threat. He's got two assists already this season. He's got 5 goals over the last two seasons as well. So I mean, he has got a goal in him. And I just think, I mean, similar to their attack, John, their defense is the best in the league as well. And if you're looking at their actual clean sheet, odds, they're at like 62% to keep at least one clean sheet in the double game week, which is the highest out of everybody. So yeah, so for clean sheet odds, they're looking good, and for going forward, they're looking good as well.
Over to the other side of Manchester United, let's talk
Yeah.
about some of their assets. Rashford's owned by nearly 40% of the game. Shaw, everyone's brought him in recently. Let's talk
Mhm.
about in general, I suppose, Dallo versus Shaw, and then maybe in midfield. Are there any differentials there we could be going for, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think with Dallo versus Shaw, I mean, I think they're quite similar. I think Dallo is looking quite appealing now that he's only 4.7 million. Shaw's got up to like 5.1. I think attacking wise, if you look at the underlying numbers, Dallow's actually got better attacking stats than Shaw. But at the moment, I don't think I'm not really sure. I mean, I do think Dallow is nailed. Like he is the first choice right back. But I think with him kind of just coming back into fitness, not back into fitness, but back from the World Cup, he
Mm.
started obviously the FA Cup game, but Anwan Bissaka has been playing well. So yeah, so I would be a wee bit wary of Dallo, in the immediate future. So I think Shaw is like the safe bet, but I do think Dallo is a number one choice kind of going forward,
Mm.
for the long term. So yeah, I mean for those who've got Shaw, obviously it's a simple keep, but for those like myself who foolishly kind of missed out, on bringing him in. I've got a decision to make there between them two.
And what about like Bruno Fernandes, Ericsson,
Yeah,
Martial?
I mean, I'd say my top three United picks were Shaw, Rashford, and Martial. I think Rashford is totally nailed. I think he should be in your team. He's like, he's having like one of his best seasons. He's gonna be one like the first names on Eric Ten Hag's team sheet nowadays. So and he's pretty much kind of playing as a forward, and he's classified as a midfielder in FPL. So I mean, there's nothing not to like about Rashford, and Martial. I think again he's nailed. I know Man United are looking at sign Weghorst, but I don't think that's going to be to replace Martial. It's probably going to be more like play him in the cup games, or give Martial and an extra 5 minutes rest at the end of the games, etc. So I do think they're the top three options. Bruno Fernandes, you mentioned, I think he is a good differential. Obviously, cost a bit. I mean, it's not a cheap gamble to make with him, but I think he's a good option as well. But I just think with Rashford as well, we could possibly be on penalties because he took that penalty against Everton in the FA Cup when Bruno was on the pitch. So not sure if Bruno just gave it for that match and whether his FA Cup wasn't like an important league game. So I think that's one to watch out for. But it could be possible that Rashford's on penalties as well now.
I want to move on to Spurs assets, but before I do
Mm-hmm.
that, I want to talk about someone from another team all together because I think it ties in. It's Darwin Núñez. He's doing all our
Yeah,
heads in. His XG 3.3 something XG, I think, since game week 17 when
yeah,
we came back. No goals. He's actually got more XG than Haaland, and Haaland's got
yeah.
three. Um, the reason I bring him up is that a lot of people are mentioning Darwin to Kane, and we're going to talk Spurs assets. So let's talk. First, I want to ask you just Darwin, what are your thoughts? And then Darwin to Kane, yay or nay?
I think with Darwin, I mean, as you said, it's been frustrating, John, but I do think he's a keep. I mean, I just think that he will come good. I mean, his stats are too good for him not to. If you're looking at even like I was watching the game against who was it they're playing in the FA Cup against Wolves, and again, just so dangerous. And that finish was a great finish from that Trent cross. So I mean, that's going to happen in the league as well, sooner or later. So for me, he's a great option. He's a keep, but obviously with Kane having a double game week now, it's tough. I mean, I guess if you've got two free transfers and you've got Cancelo on your team, it's just such an easy move to Cancelo down to a Stone or John Stones or maybe an Arsenal defender or a Shaw or a Dallo, and then moving Darwin up to Kane. But the only thing that's putting me off that move is that we're not. I mean, with Haaland there, we're not going to be captain Kane. So you're going to be captain Haaland. So maybe you could argue there's better use of those free transfers elsewhere, to kind of bolster your squad. But it is really tempting. For me, like that Darwin to Kane move. I just think it kind of depends on your team structure. But Kane obviously 15 goals and 4 assists already this season. He's having like the season. This is his best season he's ever had in the Spurs shirt. So even though those fixtures are tough as they get, with Arsenal and Man City, you're not going to be surprised at all if he scores in both those games.
Are there any other Spurs assets at all? Or
I think a lot of people are looking at Doherty, and rightly so. I think he's only 4.8 million, John. So he's one of those again. You know, he's got Emerson Royale on that side as competition, but I think again, kind of similar to Mahrez's situation. I think he's playing well, so I think Conte is going to keep playing him. And again, he's just one of those players who isn't nailed because he is one bad performance away from like getting dropped. But um, with Doherty, I mean, his price of 4.8 million it makes it like not a risk free move, but it's not like he's worth 6.5 or 7 million. He's quite cheap. You can replace your fourth or fifth defender with him, and worst comes to worst, if he gets dropped, you'll have on the bench anyway, and you can deal with him later on. I know you'll have three defenders in front of him, so I like Doherty. And again, I just think it kind of depends on your team structure, whether you're kind of, how many fires you've got to put out. He is a bit of a luxury move, I guess, if you've got, quite a few double game week players and you've already got, likes of Shaw and KDB and etc. Then he's one you could look at.
before we reveal your team for the upcoming week, are there any Palace assets sniffing around?
I wouldn't be going for any Palace assets. I think I've seen a few teams with Zaha in their team, and I think if you've got Zaha, it's fine. You keep him. But I wouldn't be. I mean, looking at the players we've got on offer, like the cheap, Manchester United midfielders, with Rashford, and you've got Martial only at 6.8 million, Rashford only at 7 million. I wouldn't be looking at any, Palace assets. Even the United defenders like Shaw and Dalot are pretty much the same price as the Palace defenders. So I wouldn't be looking to bring in any Palace players, no.
Yeah, we'll scrap that. And the last question I'll ask you about the double game week assets is how many is enough? Like, how many is
Oh,
enough?
I mean, I'd say a minimum of three, right? And then obviously, it just really depends. I guess if you got your free transfers, four or five, I'd say is a good number. I've got three at the moment, but one of those is Cancelo, so I'll probably be looking at move up to five with the two free transfers. But um, yeah, anywhere between, like, if you've got between three and five, I think that's average. And then if, like, any more than five, I think you're doing well.
But I think even based off like the meta or where teams have gone at this stage in the season, you'd
Mhm.
be hard pressed not to have two or three, wouldn't you? Because a lot of us
Yeah.
have a United defender. Most of us probably have a Rashford. As I said, almost 40% of us. 85% of us have Haaland.
Mm.
And then even outside that, in terms of a Man City defender or a wee Mahrez or a wee De Bruyne or whoever, some
Yeah,
people
I
have
mean,
Harry Kane. A lot of people will have two or three. So getting up to four or five shouldn't be too much of an ask.
yeah, exactly. You're spot on. I think a lot of us will have, at least two or three two or three double game week assets before making transfers. So yeah, I mean, I think it should be fairly easy to go four or five.
I'm going to pull your team up now on the My Team tool on Fantasy Football Hub just to
Yeah.
see how we're looking. So this is your team based off last week. What are you thinking of doing in terms of transfers?
Yeah, so I've got quite a few options. Obviously, as I said, I did bring Shaw in. It's still kind of hurting me, especially as Man United got a double announced this game week. So, he would have been, the right move to bring in. So I'll probably be looking at Shaw, Dallo for James, and then possibly, Cancelo to John Stones. And then I'm probably looking at a hit somewhere as well. I possibly could do um, a Salah to KDB, or a Mitrovic to, Martial. So yeah, it's just it's really up in there. And the thing is as well this week, John, is that we've got the game week 20 double game weeks announced, right? So there won't be any more double game week 20 fixtures added, but we might, or I think it's quite likely that we'll get the double game weeks for 21 to 24, like some in 23, announced before this week's deadline. So that will have a bearing on my transfers as well. Because obviously, if Arsenal get that double game week against Everton, I could bring in one of their players. But at the moment, as things stand, I think I'm looking to bring in a United defender and John Stones, and then possibly take a hit for KDB or Martial.
So let's pretend you bring in Luke Shaw and
Yeah.
Stones for James and Cancelo. I
Hmm.
imagine you'd start both them. You'd start Trippier. I'm having here as your benches White, Patterson, Andreas,
Yeah, but
Captain
yeah,
Haaland. Maybe
of
triple.
course.
Who know? We'll end with that. Will you triple Captain Haaland? Is there a chance if you
Okay.
were to put a percentage on it?
Yeah. So at the moment, I'd say I'm 60% in the no camp, right? But that could change during the week. So at the moment, he's not my triple captain, but I'm not just saying that. I am seriously considering it. I think it's going to be a tough decision for me. I think by the time deadline comes down, it's going to be 50-50.
Mm.
It's just simply because we know he's going to get those minutes in, but we don't know whether he's going to get those exact, even close to 180 minutes, in the future double game weeks. So yeah, I
Get your
think that's going to
comments
be.
in. Comment below. Triple captain or no? Let us know. You're predicted to get 85 points this week off this team. You taking that?
It's a double game week. It
Big man
seems,
wants
yeah,
100.
yeah. I mean, I need a big game week, John, because I've been slacking these last few weeks. I mean, I seem to get a good game week and then have, like, two bad game weeks, which which brings me back down to like where I was
Mm.
before. So I need that one big one just to get me into the top 100k again, because I've not been there since like game week two or three. So hopefully, a century score this week, John.
I hope so. Because if you get a century, I'm getting 110. Let's go get it this week, guys. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more of this. Like the video before you go, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Cheers, guys.